Good evening, everyone. Good evening to all our viewers. Good evening to our panelists. And a warm welcome to everyone to our second virtual career week. I am Rudy Balwant, Dean 6, and your moderator. Pleased to be your moderator for this evening's proceedings for the session Business and Finance. Why is this important? For this evening's proceedings, having gone through an unprecedented year of teaching and learning, it is even more important, we felt, that we reach out to our young men throughout the school, from Forms 3 to Form 6. They're all going to be present today. That we reach out to our young men and assure them, comfort them, guide them in their decision making at all stages of school that they're about to make, lest they feel that things are all doom and gloom around them. So at the end of our sessions, our objective is to raise their awareness, raise their spirits about their future, based on the vivid experiences and journeys of our group of our students on the panel today, tomorrow, and Friday in their various fields. So before I introduce our distinguished panelists today, I would like to ask Principal to say a few opening remarks. Mr. Nigel Joseph, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Balwant, and good afternoon to everyone listening in to this career seminar. And Mr. Balwant captured it quite well. We live in an ever-changing world with so many opportunities and options available to our young men. And as they journey through their academic development, their academic journey in life, and coming to this stage of having to choose a subject or a group of subjects that will further them into the direction of their career interests, there is always that need for us educators and other stakeholders affiliated to the school to come together and help them in that regard. And it was with that in mind that we've always had a career seminar. We would normally have it for one day and we call it a career day, but now it's expanded. Technology has allowed us to broaden our thoughts and how we approach things. And with that in mind and to that end, we have been able to achieve even better. The hope of this exercise, or coming out of this exercise, is that for those young men listening in, primarily Form 3s, but even for others, that what you hear, the kinds of questions asked and the replies given would truly influence or guide you in being able to hone in a time where careers are literally infinite. It's not like in my time where it was doctor, accountant, engineer, teacher, lawyer. It's a lot more now, and therefore a lot depends on some persons there to help you decide. And this is why we are having such an activity or an event today. So to not take up much time, I really want to welcome each and every one of you to our first day in this 3-day seminar. And I hope that the objective or what we would like to see achieved would really be so, that you would find that you're in a better place moving forward in following your dreams and goals, to having more information and being clearer as to what you need to do. Thank you, and I thank all the panelists here this afternoon for being part of this, and I wish everyone all the best.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph, and we move smoothly into our panelists for today's discussion. Today we have Mr. Derwin Howell, Executive Director of Republic Bank Limited, with extensive experience in the banking sector. Mr. Howell, welcome.
Thank you.
We have with us Mr. Christopher Lewis, CEO at Eastern Credit Union, a management expert with industry experience in credit union and banking development. Mr. Lewis, welcome.
Thank you, Rudy.
We have Mr. Ronald Poon, CEO at RJA Global Reinsurance Company Limited, based in Sao Paulo, Brazil, an actuary having held positions around the world. Ronald, welcome.
Thanks very much, Rudy. Nice seeing you again.
We have with us Mr. Ian Forbes, Executive Manager at Angostura Limited, vast experience in manufacturing environment, specialty in brewing technology. Mr. Forbes, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon and good evening, everyone, to all our listeners and viewers again. We thank all the panelists as I share Mr. Joseph's sentiments in sharing your time and stories that you're about to share with us. And we want to begin with a brief look at your stay at St. Mary's in the same space that a lot of these gentlemen are currently at. Your years of graduating, years at St. Mary's, graduating, subjects that you did, co-curricular activities, things that they all engaged in right now. Starting with Mr. Howell, you can start sharing your little experience at St. Mary's.
Thank you. Thank you, Rudy. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, fellow St. Mary's graduates and to-be graduates. My story starts in 1974. I entered St. Mary's in at that time, Upper 1A, down in the back where I guess is now the residences for the Holy Ghost Fathers. And at that time, we had our little field there where we could go outside and play and be separated physically from the rest of the school because they would always look to beat up on us. Father Lifehook, bless his soul, was the principal at that time. You know, and my extracurricular activities were, I was in the cadets, played hockey, photography. There was a video club. I remember we started that somewhere up at the back of the Centenary Hall. They had video equipment and so on. And then the video room, I don't know what is called now. The school has changed up so much. In the choir. I mean, I eventually would go on into to graduate in 78 with O levels in AdMaths, English, language, literature, Spanish, biology, chemistry, physics, that whole sort of science thing. And then went to Form 6 to do the maths group, physics, pure maths, applied maths, where again Father Lifehook was our shepherd, so to speak, Father Lifehook and Father Pedro. So that would have been my time, 74 to 80 in St. Mary's.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Lewis.
Let me unmute. Yes, thanks, Rudy. Well, I'm a little before Derwin. I joined in 72 till 78. In those days, they used to skip. Sometimes you could skip for Form 3. So I went to 1, 2, 4. Extracurricular was first Trinidad Sea Scouts. That was the mainstay, and of course the choir with Miss Lindy Ann Boddenrich. That was a very useful kind of experience, you know, taking part in music festivals and this sort of thing. And the experience really is memorable in terms of forming your psyche at a very young age. And that's what I take away from St. Mary's in terms of that mixture of academia as well as sporting, as well as a type of extracurricular activities. It wasn't just about studying, it was about having fun and living life and learning new things. And that is what I have kept with me up to this day, that sort of inquisitiveness and wanting to know more about what is happening. And so it has been a very rewarding experience. It has been.
What were the subject areas that you did at one?
Oh, I was Modlang. All kinds of science people, the guys who didn't know much. So, so my A levels was French, Spanish, economics. And of course, my current career has nothing to do with French or Spanish, and some economics, yes. But again, the lesson there for me is that, you know, it's just follow your passion, follow your interests, and you could be anywhere. You may start somewhere and end up somewhere else. It's just a question of keeping learning.
That's going to be an important lesson for you guys to hear. That's something that something to put across to them. Ronald?
Yeah, hi. I'm going to shortcut here and basically say that I'm very similar to Derwin Howell in the other than the years. I entered in 76 and left in 83. So it was basically the same thing. I basically did the math group as well, of course, which was under Father Lighthoop and Father Pedro, of course. Extracurricular activities, I was never great at anything, to be honest. I was involved in chess, in volleyball, on cadets, Legion of Mary, all to boys. My parents thought I was some great pianist. So most of my time was spent playing the piano. And trust me, it was certainly no great contribution to the musical world of Trinidad. But anyway, so a lot of time was spent playing the piano and even going to music festival and not embarrassing myself too much anyway. But looking back at all of this is really the diversity of people that you meet. And I would say one thing, the all boys school, like at least nowadays, let's talk about what I knew. There was something called association, right? That big boys don't talk to little boys, and basically it. But during the cadets, of course, you play chess and things like that. Then, of course, those barriers disappeared. So even though you wouldn't be grandmaster or anything like that, it certainly opened doors. And the other day, of course, I was talking to a guy in insurance, and he remembered me from the cadets, way back when. So from a networking point of view, I consider it extremely important. So I said, academically, my highlights really would say first day of school in St. Mary's, very, daunting, of course. The same way Mr. Derwin talked about in that annex where I think the priests live now, we were there. And of course, getting into math group was a big thing, of course, in those days. I was great. Thought the life group was quite selective. I think there were just 10 of us, instead of the picture of us, the 10 of us in the class. And one girl, we were privileged. We had Giselle Francois was there with us. And then also, and of course, winning the Open National Scholarship. That was a big highlight, of course.
Sure, yes. Thanks a lot. Ian?
Okay, good afternoon, gentlemen. First of all, it's a pleasure to be among such a distinguished company. Moderator, I just want to confirm that you hear me clearly.
Sure, yes.
Right. Okay, so my journey at St. Mary's College. So first of all, my journey started in the east of the island. So I was from Sangre Grande. So the journey to St. Mary's College was one of real aspiration. I found out about the college in a very funny way. I used to go to Imperial Optical with my father when I was in primary school because I started wearing glasses from Standard 1. And right across from where Imperial Optical were, there was St. Mary's College. I then found out that a neighbor of mine, one Mr. Derek Granswall, who turned out to be a scholarship winner, open scholarship winner at St. Mary's College, that he actually attended St. Mary's College. And somehow I looked up to him as an older person from my community. And I aspired to attend St. Mary's College. It wasn't easy. In those days, it was extremely difficult to journey from as far as Sangre Grande to go to school. So for me, it was more of a tremendous sacrifice. I agree with what I heard from Christopher. The very first day, Christopher and Ronald, that first day in St. Mary's College is a very daunting experience. You come from a small country school, and then you see this massive humanity called St. Mary's College. And then, of course, thankfully, the priests were very, very gracious to us and had us hidden away in that annex area that Derwin mentioned, with our little field where we'd play among ourselves, because the rest of the school, it was just too big and too unknown for us to cope with. So I was also in that section of the school that Ronald and Derwin referred to, which is now where Spiriton House is. Derwin, in fact, was my principal in was my prefect in Form 1. He was a very serious prefect, sent me to Father Dick for just asking a man the time in school, just asking him man what time it was during the quiet time. And I got my first set of licks from Father Dick. My first and only set of licks in St. Mary's College is thanks to Derwin Howell, and there he is. Anyway, that is life at St. Mary's College. I never forget that Derwin. So in my journey was similar to Christopher and so on and Ronald. So I made the sacrifices. I started in upper 1A and was among a group of very talented guys, and I was inspired to try and stay with them until I leave school. So I was able to skip Form 3 and make it to Form 4. Plus, of course, I wanted to avoid Mr. Raja at all costs. So I was very inspired to skip Form 3. Just didn't want to end up under his rulership at all. So I was fortunate to make it. continued to 4 and 5. Now, coming from this country school in Sangarandi and living in Sangarandi, it was very difficult for me to keep pace with the academia. So what I did is I moved in with a family member, an aunt of mine who lived in Belmont, and I continued the rest of my school career from Form 2 until Form 6 from Belmont. Even with that, I was able to get into some limited extracurricular. I did photography. That was my primary extracurricular. I did that with Father Dick after he stopped beating. And I had a wonderful experience of photography with Father Dick. In Form 4, he was quite a lot more reasonable than when you're in Form 1. So that was my experience. So like these guys, I did all a mixture, but mainly sciences. When you're in that that stream, you have this advanced stream. You have this misunderstanding that science is the be all and end all of everything. So I was in the pursuit of science. So you have your add maths, your physics, your chemistry, biology, and of course the other compulsory subjects, language, literature, etc. I graduated in 82, so I entered in 78 and 82. I was finished with Form 5. I then went from 82 to 84 to do sixth form. There I did physics, chemistry, and biology. And as with some of these guys, I did actually pursue a scientific career. But later on in life, most of my life now is really about business. Currently, I'm acting as the CEO of Angostura. I'm very, very pleased to be able to serve my organization in this capacity, and that in itself has been quite a journey. In addition to that, my substantive position now is Chief Operating Officer of Angostura. The point of mentioning these things is to indicate that, as Christopher and others said, it doesn't matter where you start. I started in the heart of sciences. I'm a master brewer, etc. I intend to learn distilling. There's still a lot to learn. But in the end, most of my time is spent in terms of managing a business. And that is meant to indicate that you really need to follow your passion. And that is really what I want to underscore among what some of these other distinguished gentlemen have said.
Sure. Thanks a lot. That's going to be a common thread throughout our discussions this evening, so that the guys in school currently could know that even if they are in this undecided, and unsure of what they're doing or what they want to do, that your experiences and your journey is going to show them that they can start off somewhere and end up somewhere else quite successfully. So the next avenue that we want to go down is to share with all our young men what has been your journey from CIC. So what was the path you took after Form 6 or Form 5 towards university and towards getting into the working world? What was that journey like? So that they will know, because some of them are in Form 6 who's doing now, and they're about to embark upon that. So Ian, you can continue and go down that road for us. What was the journey past the past graduation?
Sure. So after graduation, I was fortunate enough to get my first job at Carib Brewery. And the reason for that is sometimes you're not well guided when you're in school. So I didn't apply to go to university. I didn't apply to go to UE. So I took a year off, and I really appreciated that year off. And in that year off, I got an opportunity to work as a laboratory technician at Carib Brewery, and I fell in love with manufacturing and with brewing in particular, and with the food industry in general. So from there, after working for a year as a technician, I went to university and I did a first degree in analytical chemistry with a minor in biochemistry. And after that, which took me from 1985 until 1988, I graduated into a world that had no jobs. This is precisely where we are now. I graduated into Trinidad and Tobago that had little or no employment. So what did I do? I told myself, look, I'll ride out this bad economic patch by going back to university and start my master's. I went back in and I started my master's in food science and technology. By this time, my passion was food science. A lot of my colleagues went into medicine and all that sort of thing, but I told myself, look, this is really where I saw myself. So my passion in food science took me to start a master's degree, but after the first year, I was fortunate enough to get a job as a management trainee back at Carib Brewery that I had left 4 years prior. I got back into Career Brewery in 1989, May of 1989, and I ended up spending 28 years at that company. In that company, I moved from a management trainee to a shift brewer, to a senior brewer, to a master brewer, and from there became brewing operations manager. During that period of time, I did professional qualifications at the Institute of Brewing and Distilling, where I did my master brewer qualifications. Now, this is a professional qualification. So by the time I'm finished with that, so I have my first degree, I have my second degree in food science and technology. I have a professional certification as a master brewer, which took me 5 years of working and studying, and this qualification was specific to the brewing industry. After that, I worked for a number of years, and in 2004, I was fortunate to receive a scholarship from Ansa McCall to go and do my MBA. And at that point in time, I felt like a technician, a technocrat. So you have a lot of specific knowledge in a field, but at the end of the day, you have to learn to manage. Doesn't matter where you start. Once you're working with people and you're moving up in a career, at some point in time, you stop being a technocrat, a technical expert, and you have to be a management expert. Because at the end of the day, as you rise in an organization, it's about management. I felt at that point in time in 2004 that I didn't have the experience in management that I required. So I went on to do my MBA at Arthur Lockjack. I was fortunate to graduate with distinction. I was the best student of my graduating year. I did an executive MBA. I would tell you that that was the most fulfilling academic experience of my life, despite all the sciences and all the technical stuff. That was the most fulfilling experience of my life because I really wanted to be better at management. Having at all points in my responsibilities, having to be accountable and responsible for the performance of people and systems. At the end of the day, I felt I didn't know how to manage. That opportunity then formed the basis for taking me to where I am now. After 28 years at Career Brewery, I got an opportunity in 2017 to work as to get a job of executive manager operations at Angostura. I continued in 2017, and by 2019, for a number of reasons, I was asked to act as the CEO. In 2019, I acted as the CEO, and in 2020, I was promoted to Chief Operating Officer. For various other reasons, we found ourselves without a CEO again at the end of September 2020, and I was again asked to act as the CEO, and I'm currently acting as the CEO of Angostura. The issue here is that, again, it doesn't matter where you start. So from a scientific start into a business, a business competency, but that if it wasn't for that MBA and that business training, I would not have been equipped to be able to serve my company in this capacity. And this acting capacity is once again a highlight for me because it's given me the opportunity to integrate everything that I know in this sector. So I've become a specialist then in the what is called the drinks industry or the alcohol industry. And I consider myself fortunate in that I'm one of very few persons who would have worked in brewing and then worked in distilling. And that's been quite a highlight for me. Yeah, so that's my journey to present. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that. Hoping the audience they're hearing how that journey took place. Christopher, you'd like to join in and explain what is the actual path after St. Mary's?
My path was quite varied, but I'll try to summarize it. Yeah. So I left, as I said, in 78. I started working soon after as a trainee with then Barclays Bank of Trinidad Tobago, now Republic Bank. But I left there shortly, not after, maybe 3 months, because I got a job at the University of the West Indies in accounting. And it was close to my home. I could walk to work, and they had a lot of advantages. So I entered UE 79 to 82. And again, the foundation in St. Mary's helped me because I just knew I wasn't sure what I was going to do in UE, but I know I was going to further my education because that grounding was forged in St. Mary's College. So talking to my family, I said, okay, well, I'm not a scientist type of person. I'm not an engineer. So the thing that seemed logical for me was to do the management studies degree, BSc Management Studies with Dr. Wadi Nambiarachi at the time was head of that department. So I did that, graduated, got a job straight out of UE in management, actually a small tertiary education school, and did that for 2 years. And then my brother at the time, that was 1984, said, well, hey, you can't just rely on a university degree. You need to distinguish yourself. In those days, MBAs weren't as popular. So I said, okay, I might as well do an MBA. Not too much enthusiasm, I'll admit now, but it was a means of distinguishing myself from everybody else who had a first degree. So I said, well, okay, if I'm doing an MBA, it has to be one of the best in the world. So I got the forms from Harvard and from Kellogg and from University of Chicago and University of London. When I saw the forms, I said, you know, there's too much paper to fill out. I'm only applying to one. So I applied to Kellogg Graduate School of Management, which was like a top 3, and I got in. So, and they had a 1-year program for business graduates. So because I had a first degree in UE, I could do Kellogg in 1 year. So it saved time and it saved money. And the point I want to make with that, when I was applying to Kellogg, I was supposed to be nominated for an OAS scholarship, but clerical paperwork, they didn't submit my nomination. I didn't go through. I could have waited for a year. I said, you know what? I'm going to go. I don't know where all the money is going to come from, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to get into Kellogg. I got in. The year after, while I was in Kellogg, 1985, the then Prime Minister George Chambers devalued the Trinidad and Tobago dollar by 50%, from 240 to 360, which would have made my course of studies impossible for me at that time at those exchange rates. I wouldn't have had the money. So I've learned those kind of life lessons very early. Seize the opportunity, do not procrastinate. If I had waited to say, well, when the time is right or time is better, I may have never gotten enough masters from Kellogg, and who knows where my life would have been. When I came back, similar to Ian, in 1985, Trinidad was in a height of recession. You know, there wasn't much jobs. I started with some friends from St. Mary's, actually. We started a consultancy business. We weren't making money, but you know what? We were busy. And that was almost as important because it is important for your sanity, because you learn certain things, you have certain knowledge. And if you stay at home just apply and say, well, okay, I need to get paid for my efforts. Sure, but you might be waiting for a year or 2 years. So it was preferable for me to be busy doing work for clients. They weren't paying as well as they should have, but my brain was always active. And that helped me along in terms of understanding business and some of the vagaries that may come about being in business. But it didn't mean it was necessarily a bad thing, but this is a lesson to be learned and you have to manage it. So from there, eventually, I found my way to the Nilamasi group, where I was there for 8.5 years, first in Cannings Dairy, but they shortly shuttered. Then I was transferred to Nilamasi Motors, where I stayed for 8.5 years. I could have still been there, but I left because I was bored. You know, I didn't have enough work to do. And again, that's strange because sometimes people feel you have a good job, you get in a car change every year, you have a good salary, nice position, director in Nilamasi, good benefits. Why are you leaving? But your life is more than a job and a good career. It's about self-actualizing and really being the best you that you can be. So I was headhunted to do logistics at SM Jalil. At that time, it didn't have the internet. Now was formed in 1984 when I went to Kellogg. So that's to tell you, so back in the time. So I had to check up on the encyclopedia. What does a logistics manager do? I had no idea. So when I looked at it, I said, okay, nothing with science. I could do that. Because once it had anything closely resembling physics or chemistry, well, that would have been a no-go. So I said, yes, I told the headhunter, yes, I'll go. I was there for a short stint, and then I got another position in St. Martin, same logistics manager, but moving from a manufacturer to a wholesaler retailer. And again, another life lessons learned. That turned out to be a not so good job. Actually, one of the worst jobs of my career. But you know what? I ended up being in St. Martin, and then I got the best job of my life, I could say at that time, at now RBC in St. Martin, in corporate banking. Now, I never did corporate banking before, and I'll give a little story. I went into the bank at RBTT. It was to get financing for a business I was doing some work with. They wanted extra financing. They were buying goods from Trinidad to sell in St. Martin. And because of how I wrote the business plan applying for a loan, they said, hold on, would you like to work with us? We need a senior account advisor in the corporate banking unit. I said, sure, no problem. Well, the managing director would like to talk to you. So there I'm in my jeans and earring in my ears and looking like a bad boy in St. Martin. And I now scrambling to take these earrings out of my ear and trying to look semi-decent to meet this managing director. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I stayed there for 4 years. It was one of my best jobs in terms of the people and the interaction with the business community and this sort of thing. Came back, got a job in Home Construction Limited, in strategic planning and budgeting, moved on hospital management, moved on CEO of Export ET. And again, I'll just share a story there. I came in as the CEO of Business Development Corporation. But at the time, the government had changed and it was Minister Barrett. And he said, you know what, your company should be focused on export. You need to be Export ET. That happened within a month of my arriving as the CEO of Business Development Company. I interviewed for a different job. And my approach was, okay, if it's Export ET, it's Export ET. I had to do some research because I wasn't an export expert, but I learned as quickly as I could and made the transformation. So that's another lesson. You know, life is about change. You cannot set a life path for yourself and feel that you're a failure if you haven't followed that path to the T. Sometimes life is about varying the path because something else comes up that makes more sense for you and just go with the flow. And that's what I did. I went with the flow from an Export ET. I did listen back at Jalil, then Invest-City, where I was the president of Invest-City. And from there, I ended up at the credit union as group CEO. So in terms of career path, it has been very varied. It certainly wasn't French, Spanish, and economics, which is what I did at St. Mary's. But all of that is part of the learning process because the number one thing I learned at Kellogg School was not the courses which I did, was usual management related courses, but it was the ability to think. Because one thing the professors taught me in that school is that what is written in books is just somebody's opinion and they put it down in a book. It doesn't mean it's the truth. What they want to hear from you as a student is what is your interpretation? What is your viewpoint? So your perspective is just as valid as the author's perspective. And that was eye-opening for me as a young person at that time, because, you know, we tended to grow up in a culture where you believe everything that you read. And it's even more relevant today with all those fake theories and QAnon and all these kind of things that are happening. You learn to have an inquiring mind to question things as they happen and to form your own judgments based on facts, based on data. So that has been sort of my journey in summary.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Christopher.
Sure, you're welcome.
Really a diverse journey that you just went through there. And I'm hoping that the guys are listening. And, you know, all the guys who have their decisions to make and keep all these lessons that you're hearing here and journeys that you're hearing here in mind when you're making your decision. Derwin, you can take us up with your specific journey post St. Mary's.
Okay, well, you know, somebody made a point earlier about, you know, how St. Mary's has affected you, and I went to UWI. I have 2 degrees from UWI, but I will tell people I always refer to myself as a Saints man. I've never referred to myself as a UWI man. So for some stress, so at the end of the day, I guess it's that foundation you get in St. Mary's that allows you to identify so strongly with the old white and blue, so to speak. So I left St. Mary's in 1980. We like Ronald, I was one of the fortunate enough to get a scholarship. I was not open like him, I was additional. We actually won all 4 scholarships in the maths group that year. So with Gregory Armour winning the open, and he actually won a maths scholarship and is now a lawyer. So that's another journey. But I entered UB in 1980 to do electrical engineering. I had actually applied to UCLA in California to do a degree in computer engineering. So I said I'll do a year in UE and then I'll transfer to UCLA. I got accepted into UCLA, and the government said yes, the scholarship could be used for UCLA. And then UCLA told me, well, that first year you spend in UE not gonna count for anything. I said, well, okay, thank you very much. So I said, if I do 2 more years in UE, I have a full degree. I could do 2 more years after that and have a master's and a BSc. In 4 years, I would have had to get, so in a total of 5 years, it would have just got me to BSc in UCLA. I said, you know what, I have no family even in California. I will be by myself. I will stay in Trinidad and do my BSc. And UE just as good as UCLA. And I ended up staying and did my electrical engineering degree in UE. I came out with first class honors, graduated in 1983. And went straight into telco. Well, the then telco was now TSTT, telephone company. I joined there as an engineer trainee. Worked there, and so I got in there in 83. And then in 1985, I applied for a scholarship, UK Commonwealth scholarship. I was awarded that scholarship, and I went to do my master's in telecommunications at the University of Essex, which was a fantastic, a one-year degree. I always tell people it was like drinking water from a fire hose. I mean, you know, the amount of information you get in that 1 year, and your BSc is a kind of measured pace. When you enter masters is sprints you're talking about. But it was fun because there I was exposed to a lot of sort of new world technology. Cellular telephones were now becoming things, and I actually did my thesis or my project on cellular telephone microcells and so on. And some of the lecturers, they were actually working in the labs in British Telecom at the time. So they would come into class and you would talk to you about the latest developments in what was not then being developed, fiber optics, which fiber is now sort of old hat now. But at that time, it was sort of the leading edge. So after my master's, I came back to Trinidad. When you get a scholarship, you're supposed to come back and do government service. And I had left TSTT I left TSTT or telco on study leave to go and do this 1 year study leave. When I came back, the scholarships division wrote to telco and asked them for a job for me. And they said, no, we have no job for him. But I said, but I already work in telco, I on study leave. I mean, you have no job for me, But anyhow, they sorted that out. So I got back my job. And I ended up staying in TSTT for another couple of years. I left in 1994 after doing so many different jobs. I was data engineering. So that was the first set of, packet switch and data switching, what I guess is now the advent of the internet and broadband and so on. I worked in central office engineering. I worked in sales, selling PBX systems, data services to the government and corporate entities. I worked in IT. I mean, I tell people the only 2 departments I didn't work in TSTT or telco was HR and finance. So in 1994, I saw an advertisement in the papers for a company that was looking to set up a sort of interbank service. And I always remember I did an application and sent it to a friend of mine, Stuart Smith, who went to school with me, and said, what do you think about this letter? You think I should apply for the job? He said, go for it. And I applied for the job and I got it. And I ended up having to start what is now known as Links, Infolink Services Limited. So I actually left TSTT at that time to set up Links. Interesting story. My first day of links was the 18th of April 1994. Now, the 17th of April 1994, for those of you who remember, was the day that Brian Lara, actually 18th of April 1994 was when he scored 365 or 375, sorry, in Antigua. And on the 17th of April, I was actually in Antigua watching him. And I had to leave the ground to go to the airport to get my flight to go and pick up this new job, right? As fate would have it, I get to the airport. So I left the ground. I think he was on 226 or 262 or something like that, right? Get to the airport. As fate would have it, the flight never left Antigua until about 3 o'clock the next morning, right? So I get to the office, of course, tired. And I tell my directors, you know, I was in Antigua. They say, so why you didn't stay? You know, it's like, okay, fine. So anyhow, I started Links in 1994, set up the company, set up all the different systems that you now know for ABM sharing and point of sale and so on. I left Links in 1997 to go to Republic Bank. So they kind of headhunted me because, well, Republic Bank was actually one of the shareholders in Links. And so the CEO there at the time, Mr. Ronald Affat, invited me to come across to Republic Bank to head up the IT area. And I went in there. Republic had just bought Bank of Commerce at the time. And so my first big project inside of there was to merge the two IT systems from Republic and Bank of Commerce. Never bored because straight from that project, I went into Y2K. And those of some of you on the call would understand what Y2K meant. It was that transition from 1999 to 2000, where they thought the world would shut down. They didn't know we had things like COVID coming that could really make the world shut down. But you know, that was the next big project I had. And then, you know, we had a lot of different things. And even in Republic Bank, I changed from IT in 2005. They asked me to run the branch network. So then I transitioned from IT technology to essentially back into, well, not back into, but into banking. So I then had to run the branch network. I remember the CEO at the time came to me and he asked us to see me, sat down in front of me and said, I want you to start running the branch network. And I was kind of like, you know, where that come from? So I said, you know, if you think I could do it, then I will definitely try my best. And it turned out to be a very, very nice stint for 5 years. And after that, they sent me to Barbados to run our operation in Barbados. So I ran that for 2 years. And then I came back in 2013 as one of the executive directors of the bank. So as it stands right now, I am one of 3 executive directors in the bank. And really for the group, because we run a group that has about maybe 8 or 10 subsidiaries in the Caribbean, and then we have a bank across in Ghana as well. So my journey has been, and most of those subsidiaries reporting to me. I also now responsible for the IT area, our electronic banking area, marketing, shared services, and those types of things. So my journey has been a little varied from engineer to banker. And along those ways, I had a whole bunch of other little, you know, actually I forgot, I actually did my MBA in 1992. And I also went to well, in my day, it was called UEIOB, Institute of Business. It was subsequently renamed the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business. So I started mine in 1992. At that time, I was working in telco, and I asked them to sponsor me, and they opted not to sponsor me. That got me a little upset. I said, you know, I was one of the youngest managers ever in TSTT or telco, and they didn't seem to want to invest in me. So I said, you know, I'll invest in myself. And eventually they said they'll pay for half over one of the years. And I said, well, yeah, fine, whatever. And actually that was one of the things that prompted me to leave the organization, because I wasn't too sure that they were too interested in my own development. But I took things into my own hands. And I think, like Ian, as an engineer, you know, I saw the world in a particular way. And I always tell people after the MBA, I never read the newspapers the same way, you know. It changed your perspective on on things. And then the other thing for that for me was a lot of people go into these things for the certification. And yes, you need to get a piece of paper at the end, but I think what you really learn, and certainly in that MBA, one of the things that was important was the networking. I think Ronald spoke to that issue of networking and the issue of working with people. So it's not only managing people, but working alongside people, working in teams. You know, everybody had their own little, we had a study team, and everybody's strengths came to the fore when we had group projects and that type of thing. And it really helped from that perspective to kind of, to give you that kind of training and the networking and so on. So that's my journey.
Thanks a lot, Derwin. Quite interesting, quite interesting. Just before we move on to Ronald, I just want to let our viewers know, our audience know that, you know, feel free to ask some questions in the chat. You can go onto the chat and post some of your questions, and in between, we can always take some of the questions and pose it to some of our panelists. So, you know, whilst the discussions are going on and things are being raised, you may have something you want to ask, guys. So, especially those in the Form 3, looking to make choice of subjects, or Form 5 and 6, leaving to decide on a career path. Please feel free to put the questions on the chat, because I'm not seeing any right now. So start to put some questions so we can take a break and switch over to some questions and answers. So Ronald, we can listen to your journey and hear your journey now from St. Mary's.
I'll try to be brief, believe it or not. Okay. So I'm an actuary, and why did I decide to do this profession? I guess it's always a lot of coincidences, right? My dad was big into advertising in the 70s, 80s in Trinidad. And a lot of his clients, for some reason, were insurance companies, right? So Tatton was there, Caribbean Home was there, risk management services, et cetera. Lots of insurance companies. So they all come to the house on Sunday to socialize, whatever. And they saw me playing chess all the time. I love chess. And do my little math problems. And they said, you have to be an actuary, you know? So from this little germ, I have to be an actor, I have to be an actuary. Because I'm good at math, good at chess, and the old insurance guy. So anyway, so lo and behold, became an actuary, right? So I decided for that journey. And it's interesting to hear the stories everybody's saying so far. We all sound like firemen, you know, like, you know, ready to go, you know, and there's a problem, you're going to solve the problem. And in a way, even though I am an actuary, and I've always been an actuary, I've had various jobs within that field, right? So I'll go through a few of them. Okay, I left St. Mary's, of course, and I went to study in England, University of London, it's called now. And after that, I graduated with first class honors and qualified as an actuary in London. And came back to Trinidad. I won scholarship, so we had to come back. You're supposed to come back, which I did. Worked for Guardian Life. And then after that, after the scholarship period, I went to Puerto Rico to be, you know, chief actuary of a Puerto Rican company. Owned by Life of Jamaica at the time. Still, that was an experience. I mean, going to England was quite an experience as well. Let's put it that way, because you're young. This is like you're 18 years old. You're going to London, big city, of course. You know, that was a big thing. And I remember being very impressed with the demonstrations against nuclear disarmament and stuff like that. And thinking, oh my God, the nukes, you know, pointed towards us in London now, because you never really felt that in Trinidad. And you're really part of the world economy. So that was a culture shock. So then I went to Puerto Rico, which is another kind of culture shock, very Spanish, right? And I was chief actuary. And then after that, I'll get to the story why I left Puerto Rico in a while. I went to Germany to live in Cologne, in Germany. And in those days, there was no internet, there was no translation, everything was in German. And those guys didn't speak English. Even though they say they speak English, there's no English speaking in Germany. And so that was an experience as well. And I joined a reinsurer. I'll get to that in a while as well. A big reinsurer in Germany, the oldest in the world, very traditional. And then after that, they sent me to Brazil. So I went to Brazil that was 1992. That was 97. I went to Brazil. Yeah, 97 I went to Brazil. And in those days, it was so weird. Brazil was just a closed country. There weren't even any books how to learn Portuguese. You know, it was so closed, you know. It had just come out of military dictatorship. And anyway, so that was another experience, of course, going to Brazil, which in those days was a very closed economy, not like today. And so that was another culture shock. And then I was sent to Argentina to run the Argentine office that had some problems, which is a neighbor. So, and then what happened was the biggest financial crisis in probably the history of the world, in Argentina crisis. You know, the banks were closed for 6 weeks. So I don't know if I followed trouble or trouble follows me or something like that. But anyway, so Argentina was in the biggest chaos you could ever imagine. So I was there. in the middle of all of that, demonstrations and stuff going on in Argentina. And then I fixed the Argentine company, its problems. And you learn this in life. They normally send you when there's a problem, right? No, when things are working well, nobody thinks about you. When things are not going well, let's find somebody to fix this problem. So I've done very well out of some of these big situations in the world. And then I went to Mexico. After that, fixed the Argentine problem. I went to Mexico. And when I went to Mexico to work, thankfully, nothing happened there. No earthquakes, no hurricanes, or anything. My job was to really try to join Latin America, because they had offices in Brazil and Argentina and Mexico, and they weren't really talking to each other. So my job was really to make everything work better, I guess, more efficiently. And eventually I went back to Brazil, which I kind of love. So where I am today still, so in Sao Paulo. And the little story here is, of course, I failed my Spanish, O-level Spanish, both CIC, both O-levels, right? So anyway, I didn't apply myself too well, but never mind, failure is failure. And of course, here I am rattling off in Spanish and Portuguese. So it's never too late, okay? You can always look back on that. So academically, I went, because of all these journeys, I guess I'm considered a global executive, right? In those days, not many people traveled that much. And I remember people telling me, oh my God, Ronald, people remember you as traveling because you were the first one to do this, right? And all these kind of crazy places. And academically, I picked up a lot of stuff. I was a British actuary. When I went off to University of London, I worked in the City of London for 5 years, qualified as an actuary. And then I picked up an American qualification, the American designation of an actuary as well. And then I became a chartered financial analyst. And all of this really is because I had a mentor, right? This American girl. And I was really, whatever she was studying, I was studying, right? Because she was a great success. She is still. And so that was an important thing academically to do that mentorship. And then looking at all that kind of stories I gave you there, I have to divide my life really into three, really, my professional life. From 86 to 92, I was in London working for big international consultancies. Everything in its order, very orderly, nice and nicely boxed. You know, you're going to study these exams, you're going to get these jobs, you're going to get these promotions, very nice. When I went to Trinidad, that was a different level because I was really low down the totem pole in London, right? Because London's a big, the financial capital of the world, insurance capital of the world, you know. I was qualified actuary, but so what? Thousands there, right? So anyway, so there I was, chief actuary of Guardian Life, right? All of a sudden, right? 26 years old, you know. So that was a big thing, you know, of course. And that was really, Guardian Life actually had a consultants company. So I was the head of the consultancy. But because of that, I was head of Guardian Life, the chief actuary. I did a turnaround. At the time, there was an insurance company called United Securities Limited. It kind of went bankrupt. And then the consultancy was hired by the Trinidad government to turn it around. And within 8 months, it was turned around. It was with Nationwide Insurance, which is now with Sagico, the portfolio. So that was a big thing in my life. I saved this little company, and to this day, Sagico is paying all benefits. So I did that. And then as a consultancy, because this Acumen was a consultancy owned by Guardian Life, I was able to open, get clients for the first time. So it was like RBC was my client. There's a product called, I think, TISP, which is still my product. I did that. I went to Guyana and got clients, went to Barbados and got clients. So that was, I never worked so hard in my life, never in my life. It was an opportunity and I embraced it. And all of that time, I had time even to see Brian Lara in Antigua. I was there on that day as well for the whole match with Michael Tony, who I guess he's nice ago. Michael Tony, I was there. He invited me. I was there with him, traveled to him. That was the company that went bankrupt. That Universal, like USL, Universal Securities Limited. And we were visiting the islands, telling the supervisor of insurance, oops, you know, kind of company went bankrupt. So it was on that trip with Michael Tony. He took me to the ground and we saw Brian Lara do his magic. So small world, of course, in the same ground at the same time. And then anyways, after all that excitement, Trinidad, which was quite innovative, that was my scholarship years, 3 years, all of this excitement happened. And I went to Puerto Rico. And I was the very first actuary ever living in Puerto Rico, the first actuary in an insurance company in Puerto Rico. And what does that mean? I discovered the balance sheet wasn't exactly correct, right? Actuaries play a big role in this thing. Actuaries look at the balance sheet and think, okay, my God, we have to pay some claims at 1 day. So you better put up some reserves for this thing, right? So anyway, so I realized, maybe not the best reserved in the world. So when I told our bosses in Jamaica, they said, stop selling business, let's put this thing in order, right? So that's kind of boring as a young executive, stop selling business. I mean, insurance companies grow, you know, what can I do, you know? So that was a kind of life-changing moment. I discovered that, you know, and they were doing it in American accounting and all in Spanish. And I discovered this. I said, wait a minute, this is not looking quite right. So anyway, so that was quite a revelation that, you know, you could look at something for the first time, everybody has come before you, seen something, and you're seeing it differently. And by the way, you're right. So anyway, so then what do I do now? I'm in Puerto Rico with this company that's not going anywhere. So I applied some jobs. I got offers in London and Germany when I went to Germany. And I got the job in Germany. And the German was the job to be head of Brazil. They were setting up a Brazilian company. And I realized at that time that nobody wanted the job. Nobody in Germany, this big German company, wanted to go to Brazil. Brazil has their own issues. So they picked up the first guy they found in the street, and that was me. I had a job after an hour interviewing with these German guys. So anyway, I turned it into an opportunity because all the German guys thought this is a complete waste of time. This is a disaster. Let's find somebody. We promised the board we'd open a Brazilian company, right? So I was the one. But there was luck as well on my side because en route to this German company to be this type of big company in Sao Paulo, the company was bought by an American company, thank God. And I became number 2, not number 1 in the company. And Warren Buffett was the owner of the company. And so the number 1 guy he from the American company, he really knew what he was doing. He set up everything. And I was just looking at him and seeing what he was doing. So that was luck as well. Okay, so there's a lot of luck in life sometimes. If I went to Brazil all by myself in 97, it would have been turned out differently. And then in Brazil, I've been here for quite a while, 24 years now. I was very fortunate to have met up with the right people, I think. Great guys, great mentors. And they've really helped me throughout my career here. And, you know, so who do I know? No one in Brazil. Who do I speak? Nothing really. So I was really in the right place at the right time. And I really stuck with the right guys. And to this day, these are my best business partners. And so certainly, so mentorship again, they're very, very important mentorship. And I'll leave it at that. We can have questions afterwards.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Ronald. Very interesting journeys on each person's part. The guys and them are listening, so I'm hoping that they're gathering and gathering data to help them make their choices. I just have one question on the chat, but it's a question about subjects. You know, in terms of one student, Christian, is planning to do principles of accounts and principles of business, and he would like to know how to follow through with those subjects in terms of what are they like. So I'm not sure if any of the panelists would be able to shed some light for Christian as to basically the business subjects or the business field. Anybody can take up the.
If I may, I see Christopher. Christopher, you're going to respond as well?
You go ahead.
Okay, I'll go first. As a science student, I know St. Mary's College at my time had this pecking order. Science was everything. I don't know if it's still like that, right? So somehow they feel that scientists end up as doctors or engineers or some kind of thing, and somehow they have a more glamorous life. My view, my revised view is as follows. If you're bright, do business. If you're doing business, the business guys run the world. The guys who did business subjects with me, many of them now are partners in accounting firms. Many of them are bankers. Many of them are CEOs of banks. Many of them have done well. All I could tell you is if you're doing business and you're interested and you have a passion for the subject, go after it with all you got. Both of those subjects could open up so many doors in terms of careers. First of all, accounts in itself would lead into the accounting profession, but it could also lead into finance and banking. Secondly, business or business management itself as a study, whether you do it O levels, you do it A levels or university level, that whole business management field opens up so many possibilities in terms of careers. One of the things I would tell anybody who's going into business is that whatever we do on this planet, at any point in time that you get ready to go and move humanity to the next planet or to Mars, there are two things that will matter there. One is logistics and two is supply chain management. Those things come out of business. All right? Humanity will always need those things. Supply chain management and logistics. Just as an example, when you're in school in Form 5 and Form 6 and so on, you don't think about those things. Follow your passion. Don't be afraid. You like business, you like accounts, just do it and do it as good as you can. But I assure you that many rewarding careers could be opened up from doing those two subjects.
Thanks a lot, Ian. Christopher, you can take up, follow.
Well, I just finish where Ian started. Principles of accounts is a foundation subject. It's the heart of all business endeavors. It's about debits and credits and balance, assets and liabilities, and knowing how much money you made and what your net worth is. And that is applicable to any type of activity. You could be a doctor in a doctor's office. You still need to know your debits and credits, how much money you make for the day or for the month, or what's your net worth in 2021 versus 2020. So it's a foundational type of subject that regardless of whether in the science field or the business field or in engineering, it's a good grounding for you to have. And later on in life, you may be appointed to a member of a board or involved in an actual business activity. It will give you certain basic knowledge that it will be expected of you. You know to read a financial statement. You could assess a financial statement and know whether the company is performing well or not. So I would recommend that for everybody, regardless of what your final career option may be, because it's something that you could take with you. Principles of business is more a broad type of subject. If you have a specific interest in business, it would teach you, it would touch on certain things like production management, I guess, or human resource management, or as was mentioned by Ian, logistics, and so it would cover different fields. So it's a kind of introduction subject if you want to pursue a business career. But the principles of accounts, I would say, is a foundational subject. It doesn't matter what career you want to do, you should know what's in principles of accounts. So if you have the opportunity to take it, I would highly recommend it.
Thanks a lot, Christopher. Well, I hope that helps Christian and other people who are thinking of applying to do business in Form 3, and those who are actually in business right now, because we have people in the audience who are in their subjects already. There are those who are going to choose, and then we have guys who are already in business, in science. So they're here and there as to where the path that they are on. I have one other question here from Michael. Are there any careers that you know of that are suitable to creative persons and that have very heavy interpersonal interaction? So creative persons, are there any careers that you know that are suitable to that? Anybody could jump in on that?
I could respond to the creative careers. First of all, I have a daughter. My middle daughter, she's now about 24 years old, 25 years old. From the time she was a baby, she would be always doodling on a piece of paper, always doing something. She ended up in her school life getting an additional scholarship in mathematics. And the first thing she does when she goes to university is she does creative arts. She does visual arts. Her own was visual. She can't stop creating. And she knew better than I did that her passion was that. Incidentally, she got accepted into actuarial science at UWI, and none of those things interested her because her passion is creative. So again, you could go through all sorts of avenues. The academics are just foundations, but at the end of the day, do what is your passion. And as a father, for me, I was still stuck in the traditional, and I had to broaden my mind to understand what are the possibilities. From that creative area, you could go into so many areas. So a creative gets the foundations, let's say in the visual field, visual arts. It's not about painting, it's not about drawing and so on. It's so much more than that. The creative field is a jumping off point, let's say for something like architecture. The creative field is a jumping off point for things like cinematography, filmmaking, right? It is a jumping off for art, design, so many fields, from graphic design to doing advertising. Ronald said his dad was in advertising. Advertising is a whole massive thing by itself, right? You could get into graphics. You could do design, whether it's from packaging to products. You could get into the photography as a pure field in itself. So it's where is your creative passion? And the guy in Trinidad and Tobago, who in my mind has epitomized what a creative career is. I'm sure you guys must have heard of Tribe, and you've heard of a fellow by the name of Dean Akin. And I'm sure all the fellas would have heard about Caesar's Army,
Yeah.
right? You've heard of those companies. Well, guess what? Those companies are run by creative guys. And some of them came through traditional careers. Dean Akin went to banking and then realized his passion is, hey, creative. So what does he do? He forms a company and he gathers more creative around him. And the man is revolutionizing what we know in Trinidad and Tobago and producing products that go beyond. The whole idea is that if that's your passion, you're going to find a way. And as a parent, I had to trust that my daughter would find her way. I am supportive and encouraging, but I am now totally convinced that you can have an exciting career as a creative. And guess what? It will take you into business. I know this is a business forum, but
Yeah.
ultimately everything is business. Dean Akin is a creative, but what is he running? He's running a business. All right. Caesar's Army, same thing. All right. Those guys are running businesses. They are creative, but they're businesses. So I think that the creative energy of Trinidad and Tobago as a people, as a culture and so on, has so much more to bring. And maybe among you guys are the future of entertainment in Trinidad and Tobago. When I look at music videos made locally and so on, I'm excited. I myself have a interest in that sort of thing, in video editing and all that. And I'm amazed at what could be done. It's fantastic what you could do with a cell phone, much less if you have a proper camera. It is beautiful and it is wonderful. And I encourage you guys, if creativity is your thing, you follow it with your passion. Just go hard at it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Michael, I hope that helps. And we actually have Caesar's Army on Friday, Ian. Jules is going to be part of the entertainment panel on Friday. So Michael, you can, and others, you can make sure and join in. They're going to be the creative careers guys on Friday. And they are in the actual business of creativity. Thanks for that. We have a question from Stephen. Are you all contented with your positions in the working field that you're currently at, or are you all looking to move and move higher up? Derwin, yeah?
Well, I mean, as I think I said in my own presentation, you know, one of the things I could say about, I remember working at TSTT or Telco for 11 years. And when I left, I say, I'm not going to work 11 years for anybody ever again, you know? And so when I got to 11 years in Republic Bank, I had to kind of make a decision, you know? In November 22, I'm going to retire from Republic Bank. And I'll be 25 years in the bank at that time, you know? So I think content is a good word to use. One of the things I think has always helped me from that perspective is I really don't depend on anybody to make my situation. I mean, I take my life into my own hands. I mean, you know, they talk about you know, opportunity and luck. I mean, luck is essentially when preparation meets opportunity. And I've always been like that. I think that is really to some of my colleagues on the thing about following your passion, doing the things you like. You know, I've always asked questions. I've never been sort of pigeonholed in my area of the bank, which would probably account for why I've moved around in the bank, because I could have come in IT and say, well, unless it have a screen and a keyboard, I'm not dealing with that, you know. But I always went out and learned the business. And so when I was asked to transition from IT into commercial and retail banking, it was easy for me because my curiosity had allowed me to understand the banking side of things, right? So And now in my current position, I mean, I have run a bank in Barbados. I've had to do all sorts of different things. So contentment is there. I mean, because I've been varied. I mean, yes, if you're in one thing all the time, you could be bored, but I've never been bored. And I also have a lot of other interests. I think, Ian spoke about creative. I myself, notwithstanding the fact I'm a banker or an IT person, however you want to, or an engineer, which is my profession, I have gotten involved. I've produced a play with David Rudder and the deceased Tony Hall, that ran for 3 weeks in Carnival in 2006. I've produced 3 full-length concerts with David Rudder, and so it's just get involved in what you think you need to get involved in. I'm a sort of amateur photographer, and I get involved in those types of things. So I think it's really about how you play into your life. I mean, I don't think it makes sense for anybody to pigeonhole you in any one thing. There are always opportunities for you, something different. I think the issue too is more about your attitude. I always tell people at the end of the day, you could hire for attitude and train for aptitude. If I get somebody with a good attitude, I could train them on the job. But if you come in there with all the A levels and O levels and degrees in the world and have a bad attitude, I don't think you're going to get anywhere. So it's really about your attitude. Have the right attitude, and you could always pick up the skills along the way from that perspective.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I have some questions. I just want to keep on shooting at these questions just to make sure the audience is included. Do the panelists actively build assets? If so, what? Real estate, stocks, where do you put your investments into, or do you? I don't know if Ronald or Christopher or anybody would like to jump in. Do you build assets? And do you, if so, is it real estate, stocks, etc.?
If I may start on that, I think it's a very important question, and it's a question everybody needs to be conscious about. We often think of how much money we have or how much money we make in, or what's our salary. We think of expenses and income, but we seldom think of assets and liabilities. And the difference between assets and liabilities is your net worth. So we should consciously, as individuals, always be striving to increase our net worth. We may start from zero. It doesn't matter where you start from. It's about where you want to go, what you want to achieve. And we need to remember what an asset is. It's not just something that we have. It is something that is supposed to be of value to create wealth. So an asset in itself, like you have a fancy car, but people think of cars as assets, but cars are the worst asset you could have. I worked in Nilamasi for 8.5 years, and they tell you, if you buy the car for $300,000, you could drive out the showroom, bring it back the next day, and the value is 35% less. Once somebody's name is on that registration certificate, the value of that asset, as we call it, has depreciated. Now, the car may generate income for you if you're a taxi driver or if you're doing some kind of business and it's helping you move around. So if it's generating wealth for you, you can recover that loss you get in the selling price of the car. So you need to be aware of what your asset values are in terms of what asset is appropriate. There's no one answer. Everybody has a risk profile. Everybody's in a different set of circumstances. But we must all make a conscious understanding of where we are in the net worth scale and where we want to be and what will get us there, and recognize that some things that we buy and that we call assets are really depreciating from day one. And we need to know how could we turn that around and generate revenue and income for us to add to our asset base. So that's my start off for that question.
That's fine. That's great. Thanks a lot for that. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in on that, but I have another question.
Yeah.
I would just say as well, Rudy, that I think it's very important to start that what I will call saving habit from a young age.
Yeah.
I mean, in the bank, we do this sort of pre-retirement, counseling for people. And sometimes you get to the stage when you talk to some of the people, so they're 55, so they're retiring in 5 years' time. And then they realize, I'm 55, I really haven't prepared for retirement, you know? So I think the younger you start in terms of building that. Now, at the end of the day, of course, you need to spend to live, fine. But I think you must have that mentality from young. Put aside whatever you could afford to make sure you build some sort of as Chris talked about, some sort of net worth. You have an asset base there that could help you into retirement, but it also, that what you call that nest egg sometimes comes in very handy for a whole bunch of other reasons, for things that come up along the way. But I think the savings habit from young is very important.
I would just like to make a contribution as well. First of all, the young man who asked that question is really thinking long range. I underscore what Derwin has said about starting a savings habit young, but I mean, the information age has made you guys so much more informed, so much wiser, so much more aware. There are some things that you would want to keep your eyes on. All right, the electronic currencies and where that is going. That's going to be your world. That's the first thing. I'm not sure what that means, but if I were your age, I would be studying that because I'm pretty certain that is going to be part of your experience. The second thing is that traditional things such as investment in good stocks is a good thing. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have a reasonably secure and well-performing stock market, and the whole thing is about it's about the time value of money. So if you take money and you invest it into something now, it is likely in the long run to appreciate. And then there are certain types of investments that almost guaranteed to. Stocks and bonds definitely would be a useful one. And the final one is in Trinidad and Tobago, it's a very, very simple principle. Trinidad and Tobago is an island. This is something I learned from my father many, many years ago. Remember, I came from the countryside, and it's an island and it is not increasing in size. If you invest in property at a young age, not in the car, as Christopher is saying, but you get your hands on a property very early on, I guarantee you in the 40 years of a career, most of us are going to spend around about 40 years working. Depends on when you start. In that 40 years, I'm telling you that property will appreciate. The long run is that property appreciates in value. Wherever part of the world, a properly invested property. I would give you a personal example. I'm from the countryside. My old man invested in 24 acres of land in 1974. He paid $11,000 for that. I value that property because he's since passed on. He sold half of it. We have 12 of that 24 acres of land. Just remember, from the countryside, still own it, still in the family. When I valued the house and the land, it was $4.5 million. How many years later? And this is in the countryside. This is not in Westmoreland. This is in the countryside in Trinidad and Tobago. When I was in university, a piece of land in the same countryside, San Randy, that I am from, my old man was buying land in the 80s for $40,000 and $50,000 around San Randy and environment. That same piece of land, when I value it now, he's passed on, is $400,000, $450,000 for that piece of land. One lot of land in San Randy, well located, right? So you're talking about assets. When you all start working, think about where you're putting your money, because the time value of money is the issue, right? The bankers could tell you that, and Ronald could tell you that. Money over a long period of time, well invested, is what creates that wealth. That's my contribution to that question.
Thank you very much. Very, very helpful. I'm sure the guys, it's something that's part of their language now. I mean, I teach business, so I hear them talking about assets, and I hear them talking about investment in stocks. Something they're very interested. They're very curious and interested. This current generation, very interested and curious into in investments. It's not something, as you realize, was part of the language and part of their life years ago. But now, yeah, they're very, very interested in it. I have one question from one of our math teachers. She's online joining the discussion. Ms. Littlepage, what in your upbringing helped you all to be so flexible and open to change, because it's the skill that she's seen all of you all had, which aided your success in your journeys to where you are now. What you think in your upbringing or foundation or had the impact and helped you all to be so flexible and open to change. Ronald, you want to take us up on that?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question, actually. Impressive. Why am I so flexible? I think really growing up in Trinidad, you're not in a mold as such. Let's start with that, right? I think being a normal, the Trinidadian lifestyle is quite flexible. So I don't think we're stuck in a rut, or we don't do the same thing, or one day it's parang, next day it's carnival, next day it's whatever. It's those devil and juve things going on all over the place. Steel pan. It's very varied. Even something like, let's say, carnival, has all these dimensions, right? So I think from that point of view, Trinidad is really a melting pot of different cultures. From my point of view, I would say that, as I said, living in these countries many years ago, when the world wasn't even globally connected, living in London for 9 years, living in Germany, Puerto Rico, in Mexico, in Argentina, that you realize that, listen, there's no right answer in this thing, right? Everybody seems to be quite happy in Buenos Aires or Munich or in Mexico City. So there's no one solution. There are many different ways to get to that journey. So that's my answer.
Thanks a lot. Anybody would like to jump in?
If I could, I think it's values as well. We all spoke about the foundation we sort of built in St. Mary's. I always refer, for instance, to my foundation in cadets. I spent 6 years in cadets, and the discipline that brought me. My wife always tell me, these cadets have you so disciplined. And it's sometimes it's also your home upbringing, your value system, I think, plays a lot into how we've all developed in terms of doing good, in terms of keeping focused on a particular track of action and that type of thing. It's really, for me, values are foundational in everything as we move forward.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm just checking the question and answer segment here to get some further questions. I have one here that's asking you emphasize the importance of networking later on, but to what extent did your networks at St. Mary's help you in your career development?
If I could start on that.
Please go.
Naturally, it would help at the beginning, but what I want to emphasize is not the end of your network. So from you leave St. Mary's College, you know people who you're in school with in the O-levels or A-levels, as you could call them. But remember, they are all at the start of their careers, just like you. So you need to expand your network. Now you have it easier because you have internet, you have LinkedIn and so on. So like on LinkedIn, I have a network of like 3,000 plus colleagues on LinkedIn, or followers as they call it, on my LinkedIn page. And that is my main means of business communication and reaching out and getting new business contacts and communications is through LinkedIn. LinkedIn didn't exist in 1972 to 1978, internet was 1984. So what I'm saying, the students now, you have so many more opportunities to network in a real way and a meaningful way. And I would recommend you use some of those online media to do that. And on LinkedIn as a business-oriented type of networking platform, I find very useful because your networks from your school careers would generally be at your level now starting off, and they may not help carry you all the way that you want to be. So that's my comment.
Sure, thanks a lot. I have another question here for.
Can I add something to that? I think.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Ronald.
I think we're living in an age now where we have a false sense of having a network, right? So I mean, 6,000 followers in LinkedIn, maybe, I don't know how much. But importance in life, in my opinion, is you have to nurture these networking, okay? You have to make sure that you keep in constant contact and not just a little like on a Facebook page, Really try to make the relationship mature with over time and nurture it. So as I said, you have to be careful of thinking you have this huge network when really, you're looking for a job and then nobody really. And I think that's an interesting question. There's a great book called Stop Peeing on Your Shoes. One of my friends wrote this book. I said, but you're out of a job. You have no job now. Who are you going to call? And there are people who will help you. It's like the A class, right? And there are people who couldn't care less, right? This is D class. And it's pretty, you have to figure this out pretty in life, who, if you're down and out and you need some help, who will really help you? And I think those are the people you should nurture, of course. Of course, you might learn from people as well. Don't get me wrong, But I think a little classification of your network sometimes can go a long way to help you in a time of need.
Great. Thanks a lot. There's this question here is asking, and this probably Ronald could jump in here. I have the option of studying either actuarial science, statistics and economics, or math with finance at UE. What should I study if I want to become a financial quantitative analyst or CFA?
All of the above. There's no right answer to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's really no right answer to that. They're all great choices.
Mm-hmm.
And really look at the curriculum really and see what's being offered, because in each of those fields, it's huge, right? It's very wide. And they're all good fields. I'm not sure how UE works. If you could get credit here and credit there, I'm not sure. But the system there. I mean, I'm an actuary, so I'm like kind of biased in this thing, of course. But I would say one thing though, the probability of qualifying as an actuary is kind of low. I'm sorry to say this, but it's true. And why is it so low really? Passing exams. You have to be able to pass exams in your sleep. Okay? You may be the brightest guy in the world, right? You may be great. But put you in an exam and some guys, they're very cool, they can think well. It's like taking a penalty, right? In a World Cup, right? There's some people can do it, some people can't do it. Taking a free throw in an NBA finals. It is what it is, right? So being an actuary means that you are super class at passing exams, okay? And as I said, I feel Spanish at O level, so don't get me wrong, I haven't passed everything in my life. But when I did study for it, I came first without even blinking an eye, always, okay? So why am I getting my point? You have an actuarial science degree, and let's say the probability of you not qualify as an actuary is, let's say 80%. Sorry to say this, right? That's a big number, right? Big number don't qualify. Then you go for a job and they look at a certificate, actuarial science. What is that? So you have to have this huge spiel about what an actuary is and what you studied. They're a little complicated. Whereas the other things you mentioned there are a little more sellable, So be honest, I mean, I want to be an actuary. I have an actuarial science degree. I have 2 actuarial qualifications, so I have no regrets. I went till the end. But unfortunately, if you look at the odds, it's quite low to be an actuary. So that's my little 2 cents. And once again, even if you do whatever you did before, right? Those economics or you study quantitative statistics, whatever, that doesn't mean you can't do professional exams. To be an actuary, you have to do professional exams of the Institute of Actuaries in London or the Society of Actuaries in America. And they don't care. They take anybody, right? So even England, you don't even need A-levels in England. No, you don't need A-levels. Sorry, you don't need a university degree to study, to pass the professional exams. So one thing is one thing and the other thing is another thing. So but they're all good options.
Thanks a lot, Ronald. Before we continue with some of the questions, we just wanted to have one additional story from each of you. And we asked all the attendees last year, what is your most memorable saying story? Be it on the field of play or prefect's concert, the big yard, or just in the classroom, for your stay at St. Mary's, just to lighten it up a bit, what would be a memorable moment for you that you can share, of course, to us. We can start with Derwin. I see it seems to be.
But I always said one of the moments that sort of, and maybe a pivotal moment for me, that makes it so memorable, is I always remember sitting down in the corridor that looks onto the big yard, and it was the day we had to pick subjects for Form 6, right? And myself and a guy called David Ramcharan, who I only just picked back up on WhatsApp actually. We deciding to pick subjects. And to that moment, we both sat down on a bench outside and we were going to do science, physics and maths, the standard, triumvirate or whatever you want to call it. And we both sat down and said, you know, nobody is do maths group. And so the probabilities, so to Ronald's point of probabilities, the probability of winning a scholarship in the maths group would be much higher, right, than if you went in science. And that was the moment we both decided not to do science and we enrolled to the maths group. And both of us won scholarships. You know, so that always sticks in my mind as a kind of pivotal moment in my, well, I guess it's more to the end of the career, but you know, but it was very pivotal for me.
That's fine. Ian, any standout moment?
Besides me sending it to the dean.
Yes, besides.
I have never forgotten that. that would be my standout moment. Yes. But, I mean, I don't know. I am sitting in class and Derwin is there, very serious, very disciplined and all that. And my partner, and you know who my partner is, boy, who asked me the time? Martin George, boy, the attorney. Martin George asking me what time it is.
He miserable from young.
Yeah, he set me up from young. We have this compulsory quiet period before the class starts and the prefects there, boy. And I don't know, Derwin just spot me asking this man, he asked me and I tell him, well, 5 to 8 or whatever it is, boy, send me straight to Father Dick, boy. I never forget that. I never get licks in school in my life, boy. You know, that's my only secondary school licks experience, boy. Other than that, I get real licks in primary school, but then my mother was a teacher, so that was why. But boy, do it. I mean, but
sorry,
notwithstanding
sorry.
But I have the most amount of respect for Derwin, and I never forgot him as a older guy in school. I knew when he went to Links and all that, and I always see his name in Republic Bank and all that. So you know, it's all good now because it just serves to make you who you are. And
Sure.
I will tell you guys, I mean, after all these years, I just love what St. Mary's College stands for. And I'm so proud of the opportunity to have attended this school and to be part of it. And I hope that you guys have the same love and passion for the school. I still would tell you I have I have a group of friends who I have known since 1978, and we are still friends to this day. And that is what St. Mary's College does for you. You know, I am a CIC boy, not a UE boy. I'm a CIC boy.
Very important. Yeah, very important. Christopher, any memorable moments or moments?
Sure, Rudy. What stands out to me was last day of school. I was probably in Form 2 or 4 at the time, and the guys in Form 6, upper 6, decided to lift up a teacher's car and carry it up the stairs and leave it in the corridor.
Oh, Lord.
Now, these days they have cell phone and they could record these moments. But I mean, at the time, it was just looking on in awe and like, they're so brave, you know. I couldn't believe this was happening in front of my eyes. They actually lifted up the car bodily, carried it up the stairs and leave it in the corridor and went laughing. So that for me has stuck in my memory.
Sure. Yeah, let's hope it stays there in the memory.
Now I'm giving anybody ideas.
Yeah.
It was a small car though. I had that written down as one of my memories. It's a small car.
Ronald, anything?
Well, no, it's an accumulation of moments. I mean, really, but I would have to say that the highlight probably of my professional life has been attending class with Father Lightfoot, you know. He was at such a level, you know, it's very difficult, even at university. I did very well at university, came first every year, and had great professors and probably just one professor that would reach that level of Father Lightfoot. He was certainly in a class by himself, yes. So back, certainly Father Lightfoot's classes was definitely big, embedded on me.
Sure, great, thanks a lot. But if I can go back to a couple of questions, I'm not sure if you all are seeing the questions. There is one from a 13-year-old Form 3 student, so I'd like to take that one. He's 13 years old, Form 3, and he's not quite sure what career he would like to get into, but he's sure he loves math and IT. And what subjects would you recommend together with those? And career choices that you suggest to help him make his decision, because that's one of the objectives of today. Anybody would like to take up that? He loves math and he loves IT.
Well, boy, you sound like you're at a serious crossroads there. I mean, and I guess it's like going up the Eastern Main Road or the highway. Either place could take you to the airport, but I really think it's about passion, because I think you could go to the accounts and principles of business route. You could go the physics route and go sciences, because maths and IT. You know, I mean, if I look at my own situation, I mean, I did sciences, I did, you know, maths. I every point in my studying, I ended up with statistics, which I hate with a passion. But you know, you always ended up dealing with that. And look where I end up now. So I think it's about doing what you like, what you think you're good at, what interests you. The career choices, I think, will form themselves a little further down the road, you know. So I really think it's about sad to say, part of it is about the certification, because that is a fact of life, you know. But I think one of my colleagues mentioned that the certification really is about how you think, how you apply reasoning, and that, you know, that sort of thing. I tell people I have 3 degrees, and all that really tells me is that I could pass exams, right? But what it has instilled in me is logical thought, problem solving, analysis, you know, argument formulation. Those are the things that really contribute to your career. You know, yes, if you're a scientist, then you need to know some of the basic laws of physics or chemistry or whatever it is you're in, right? But I think it's really at this point, certainly in Form 3, I think is really looking at what you like, what you think is you're passionate about, because the last thing you want really is somebody forcing you to take a subject that you don't like because they think that's where you should go. You know, I think it's really up to you to do things that you like and you're really interested in.
Ian, you want to jump in?
Yeah, his interest is mathematics and mathematics and information. Those are the ones, information technology, those are the ones he likes.
Yeah.
Okay. Mathematics is a fantastic subject. I mean, it is one of the most flexible things, areas of study. Once you have a good ground in mathematics, you could almost do anything, almost. I mean, not the languages and so on, but many other things. Mathematics could open up doors into any area, from law to business to science, etc. Mathematics is the door into physics, into engineering and all of those areas. Then we are talking to young people who are going to be the future in a futuristic world. And in that futuristic world, there are new areas. So let me talk about this. The obvious ones would be IT itself, as well as comp sci, okay? Strong mathematics background will help you with programming, etc. But that's not really the interesting thing, you know. This whole data science, data mining, big data, and all the information that's being collected on the internet is going to lead to a whole set of new careers. This whole thing of algorithms and so on. These are new and emerging areas that someone at your ages, still in secondary school, could aspire to, because these areas are going to blow up in the future. The bottom line is as follows. There are certain things that will stay with us, right? I see someone mention artificial intelligence. Yes, there's certain things that will stay with us as man, as humanity on this earth. And you see the computer is not going to disappear off the earth. It is just going to continue to gain importance and relevance. If you want to be in an area of study that has relevance for the rest of your life, your academic life, which is about 40 years, computers and something related, computers, information technology, computer science, data science, computer programming, those are wide open areas and not going to disappear off the face of this earth. All right? Unless man eliminates himself and we start all over again. So those areas are here forever. The future of computers and information science is not going to disappear. If you choose a career in that area, you're guaranteed work. That's my contribution to that one. It's wide open.
Thanks a lot, Ian. To your point, when we had our last career day physically, face-to-face, we had a data scientist in as one of the careers, and the room was packed. the room was packed with all the guys because they never heard of a data scientist as a career. And the room was filled with people trying to understand what kind of career is data scientist. You know, they didn't even know it was a job. And then some of them Googled it and they saw it was the #1 job, actually, according to the internet, it was the #1 job. So yeah, it's quite interesting, the emerging trends. The emerging trends is something that we would have, you know, we wanted to touch on too, because as you said, they are the ones going out into a futuristic world. So we would like to, you know, at least touch on some of the emerging trends, and you started touching on some of the emerging trends with the careers that they are going to be bouncing up. You know, I don't know if Christopher or Ronald or anybody would like to think, you know, down the road, just to give them an idea about what emerging trends are there in your fields that the guys could think about with regards to career paths.
Well, to be honest, in insurance, of
Go
course.
ahead. Go ahead.
And so far, no one has made a revolution in insurance in the digital. I have to say, okay, certainly we have no equivalence of Uber. That doesn't say it's not going to happen. I'm going to say it's not going to happen. Okay, so the future is there, and of course, insurance has lots of data on people. You know when people are born, you know their sex, you know where they're working, you know their bank account, you know lots of stuff. So of course, it is an industry that you have a client. Guardian Life has a client, Sajik has a client. They know a lot of stuff about this client. It's not like you walk in a store, you buy whatever, something, and you leave the store with it. No, insurance is something that goes over your life. So technically, insurance is going to figure it out at one point. And there's going to be a big boom, of course. And, you know, people who buy insurance, probably not that many. Let's say 25% of people in Trinidad have or 30% have a life insurance policy, you know, whatever, car insurance, a little more, like their cars. But anyway, so it's an area that is unexplored at the moment. And the company, the Guardian Life, the Sagicor, etc., they have a lot of information about the person. So of course, it's only only time when that's going to marry, and then an explosion, an Amazon, an insurance Amazon, or a Google insurance company is going to be formed.
Sure. Great. Christopher, you wanted to take up something?
I'm just saying that the opportunities are so far and wide now, and every subject area has innovation in it, and that is what will make the difference. You can't grow up anymore thinking, well, this is how we do it, and you learn how we do it, and you continue for the next 10 years. You would certainly be ruled out of existence by the consumer markets. We see it in the supermarket trade with Amazon, and the no employees in the supermarket, and they read your ID as you come in, and then you swipe, and they know your checkout, and they bill your credit card. I mean, the technology applications are far and wide, and it's happening in banking, it's happening in credit union movement, it's happening in transportation. I remember years ago, I was in Spain, and I was embarrassed to pay for something at H&M because I was using a credit card with a chip, and everybody is just tapping their phones and going their way. I almost left the goods and walked out the store. I was embarrassed. And that was 3-4 years ago. And that is now coming to Trinidad. I'm like, really? So this is the world. So my advice is sometimes we can't keep up with everything, and it's not necessary. It's just to have an inquiring mind, always to be learning to recognize that there probably is a better way to do things than what you're doing right now, and embrace it. Embrace it when it happens, and don't fight against it, because the technology is getting cheaper. That's a good thing. It's making life easier for the consumers. And so generally it's a win-win. So that's my contribution.
Thanks a lot. One question here that's always something that comes up with parents and students every year. Do you think someone doing business subjects should at least do a science, or is it not?
Should what?
Like someone concentrating or doing business subjects mainly, but should they include a science in their choice of their 8 subjects?
Well, if they like me and they're total failure in science, I would say no. I mean, science just scared me in Form 2. Yeah. And well, as soon as I could drop it, I dropped it.
That was Latin for me, Chris.
Exactly. But if you have the skill, if you're able to understand, I would recommend everybody should have some kind of grounding in science. So this is from a non-science person. I think if you could acquire the knowledge, fine, but I wouldn't force somebody to do something that just it's hopeless, which was my case.
Yeah. I think it plays into that issue of curiosity. you know, because a lot of science is about discovery and that type of thing. And so it plays into that. And it really is if you have the capability. I agree with Chris. I mean, it makes no sense doing it if you don't like it or you're mortally afraid of it or whatever it is. I mean, I don't think it's critical. It's one of those things, if it's in mathematics is not necessary. It may be sufficient, you know. But I think it's good if you can do it, but it's not critical for you to do it. But I think it plays into that issue of curiosity and finding out how things work, kind of thing. It really allows that sort of thinking in as you move forward.
Yeah, I think what plays in their minds a lot too is that they're not too sure if they want to go down one road. So sometimes they want to make sure they have a foot in science and in business, so that in case they go down the road, they can branch off. I know that's part of the thinking that goes on a lot of times at that stage. But we know, you know, it's flexible and they can go on. I have one more before we wrap up. What are your perspectives on the job market for persons at entry level, fresh out of school, given the backdrop of COVID and the pandemic?
Well, even before COVID, I mean, one of the challenges is jobs is like a market like any other market. There's supply and demand, you know. And one of the things I can say, for instance, in from where I sit in, like in the bank, I mean, we get tons of applications for jobs in the bank at entry level, right? And it used to be some time ago that when you applied in the bank for entry level, you're applying with 5 O-levels, maths and English. Now people are applying at entry level with degrees, some of them with 2, you know, and that in itself poses a little bit of a challenge. So I think that is one of the situations you have outside there. As even before COVID, it was a question of supply and demand. Of course, now with COVID and business activity slowing down, that exacerbates the problem. I think, though, you can't see the job market as businesses. You have to see the job market as the ability to generate economic activity, which also means you can do that on your own, right? So the job market is not necessarily working for somebody, or let me put that way, that somebody could be yourself, right? It's how do you create a skill, or how do you sell yourself? And you don't necessarily need to sell yourself to a company who then sells your skills into a consumer. You could actually sell your skills to an end customer. So I think there is about you know how we train people to sell themselves, whether that's selling themselves as a company to then on-sell their skills in producing products or services, or to sell themselves to produce. So if it is that you are good at drawing, I mean, you could be a graphic artist that doing little PJs for little companies. Well, it wouldn't be PJs, it'll be your job, right? Doing graphic artists, or my daughter, for instance, does Instagram curation for a company, you know. So they she posts stuff on the Instagram for them and does the captioning and all those sorts of things. So all of those things, I think, it's great if you feel you want to work for somebody, but I think you need to also create the opportunity to work for yourself.
Ian, yeah.
My contribution to that question, I've thought about it long and hard. Here are some facts. The first one is assuming that you leave school somewhere between 18 and 20. All right, I'm talking about you finish sixth form and O-level, sixth form, and you're going into some kind of tertiary education or so. Your working career is roughly about 40 years. I came out of university in 1988, and what I've seen in our local economy is that the economy has gone full circle. It has gone full circle from where we were then, which was in a heading to an economic depression following the oil boom years of the 70s and 80s, following the death of Eric Williams in 81 when I was in Form 4, and coming down now to by 88 when I graduated from university. We were at the bottom of the bottom. Trinidad as a country was able to build itself up economically and go through another cycle. And unfortunately now, So many years later, we are at the bottom of that cycle again. My own view about that cycle is as follows. Because of the world financial crash of 2017 plus COVID, we are into a much bigger cycle than normal. Usually an economic depression cycle is about 10 years, but because we had a back-to-back of the financial crisis, the biggest financial crisis of this period, right, which would have been 2007, 2008, 10 years has gone already of that. And then we have on top of that now COVID, all right, which will also create some depression. I think we're looking at a 20-year cycle before we get up to overheated economy where we were before. So I'm looking at 2027 for us to be way back onto some kind of economic high once more. Now, for the young men that I'm talking to in secondary school, that's fine, but because by 2027, they would be now emerging from some of their first and second academic degrees and careers and ACCA studies and all that. So they will catch that up cycle. But for those who are coming out now, what I did, I came out and what I did is, for me, I couldn't get a job. I tried to get, I left a job to go to university and I couldn't even get the job I left when I came out of university. For me, I said, look, my plan is I go and ride out this recession. I went back to school. That was a way to ride it out. Okay, so you do a first degree, all right. It had nothing to do, I go and do a second degree. While I try to, Christopher mentioned distinguishing yourself. I trying to get some additional skills that would then set me apart from my competitor. For me, it was a master's degree. It doesn't have to be. You could go and do additional skills. You could go, you could sharpen your skills. You could do short courses that would add to your repertoire that is related to your area of study to try and build some competitive advantage that you can then use to, to get into a position. That's one strategy. The bottom line is that in 40 years of work, you will continuously have to learn. So it doesn't stop with your first degree. As you start in a career, you have to learn in that career. You continue to learn. It's like doctors who read all the time. It's like dentists who have to learn the latest thing all the time. IT people who have to become familiar with the latest software. Whatever endeavor you go into, it's continuous learning. I see Ronald agreeing. That's the one thing I could tell you, right? School, university is just teaching you how to learn. And there's so many things to learn that could create advantage for you. And I think you should look at it from that aspect, right? Look, Derwin is mentioning, look and see what could I do? Depending on your field, depending on your skills. Maybe I could do something. I could set up a small operation. Entrepreneurship, we didn't mention that. Entrepreneurship is an area of study of its own. If I recall correctly, when my kids were in sixth form, entrepreneurship was a study. It was actually a subject you could do at Cape. Entrepreneurship is a fantastic area. It's another area of passion for me, academic passion. There is so much that you could do. It's not about also just getting a job, but if you can start a small business, maybe your parents support you, or so you can start something, there's that as well. And this is a real possibility and option in this down economy. So those are among the options you have.
Thanks a lot. As we're about to wrap up, coming down to the end here, we just want to, go around the panel for just a 1 minute, quick word of advice, assurance to the guys in the various forms, forms 3 to 6 we have, as they venture out or as they make their choice of subjects. You can start with Derwin. Just a quick final word.
Yeah, my would be, boy, enjoy your time in school. I certainly enjoyed mine. I have fantastic memories. I have lifelong friends, I have that Saints Boy network. But I come back to the issue of values and how we can contribute into society in whatever way you can. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we must all come out of there and live our lives knowing that we're making our parents, our forefathers, and our alma mater proud of what we are, whatever it is we decide to.
Thanks a lot. Ian?
I agree. One of the things you'll realize is that you guys are actually in the best time of your lives. to be in school, to be students, to be supported by your parents, to be loved and encouraged by your parents, to discover what's inside you. What is the gift that is inside you? It's fantastic. It's the best time of your life. You think, oh boy, I have to rush out into the world and work and so on. That's going to come. Enjoy this time. It's never going to come back. The guys in class with you, you know, enjoy the experience, because when you look around, before you know it, you're out of school and everybody's gone in their separate direction. Just enjoy the moment. All right. I agree with Derwin. I have fantastic memories. I value being a CIC boy. It's impacted my life in so many ways, and just enjoy the journey. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ian. Ronald?
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, on that keynote there, getting into St. Mary's College and graduating from St. Mary's is going to give you a huge leg up in your next venture. It is what it is. You know, St. Mary's is considered the elite school in the Caribbean. Okay, so you're onto a really good journey already. Okay, so you know, basically these questions, it's good to be thoughtful, but you really have a huge advantage already, and basically take advantage of that, and you know, keep the strength to get into St. Mary's post common entrance. Wasn't easy, you know. So sometimes you might give up and think, oh my God, you know, things are going so hard for me. But you know, you're very, very top right now. So keep going on.
Thanks a lot. Christopher?
My simple comment is not much has changed for me since St. Mary's to what I am now. From one key perspective, I always believed in myself. And that's what I would urge you all to be as students coming out of St. Mary's College. Believe in yourself, define yourselves. Don't let other people define you to say what your limitations are, what you can do or what you can achieve. You, as was being said by Ian, you discover that for yourself. And you have a fantastic journey ahead of you. You may rise up, you may fall down, but when you fall down, it's just to learn what not to do next while you rise up again. You know, life is a cycle. So enjoy the moment and keep striving, keep positive.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So as we wrap up, you know, I'd just like to thank each and every one of you all here today on the panel, Ian, Derwin, Christopher, Ronald, for your great contributions, really invaluable contributions. And I'm sure the guys thought and learned a lot. They would have learned a lot, taken a lot from today's discussion. I want to thank all of them. We had quite a bit of participants, close to 200 participants at one point in time. And I want to thank them for joining us and for coming, and not to forget that we are on tomorrow for science and technology, and on Friday for the creative entertainment sports. We have some sportsmen as well, and entertainment areas where we will also be, you know, sharing their journeys and their advice to you. So please, thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Thanks to the coordinators of this career week, and look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow. Thank you guys again for joining us and being here. And I just want to urge everyone to stay safe. You know, I'm seeing some messages coming up there about the numbers coming up today. Phenomenal. So I just want to encourage everyone to stay safe and, you know, mask up, everybody, and all the best. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
best. Take care. Pleasure, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks really for everything. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
All the best, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, Brev.